Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are connected and whatever time you are watching us. Welcome to Creative Workshop of All Dance International. My name is Sandra Correa. I'm the technical director of All Dance International, and it's a huge pleasure to be here with you today sharing this creative workshop. These creative workshops that have been designed by All Dance International, especially for you, are 20 workshops in our different categories, modalities, to bring to you, to guide you, and to bring more light into what are the characteristics and everything that you will need to know for all of your creative, competitive choreography creations. So this is a space designed specially for you. So we have all the different elements we need in order to create all our choreographies and performances. Each one is accompanied by one of our All Dance International judges and part of our staff to give you and to share all of the information and with a lot of love. These have been designed especially for you to help grow the dance industry worldwide and in every country, and of course the efficiency and productivity of your work and the dance industry, and of course the dance learning and teaching industry as well. I would like to give a special thank you to All Dances International, but especially to Maria Fernanda Castro, our All Dance International General Director, who is always working, striving to bring new ideas, to bring new elements that can always help us grow and the dance industry worldwide. So she is an amazing woman, passionate about dance, passionate about everything we do here. So this is thanks to All Dance International. These workshops are completely free. It will give us a lot of information we need to know, so nothing. Thank you very much for being here with us. Today, I want to introduce and present you a very special guest that is here with us. Her name is Paola Diaz. She is a passionate dancer and teacher, choreographer who has had a lot of experience, who today is going to be teaching us and sharing with us some information that will help us in the specific technique that we have, that's tap. One of our 25 techniques, one of our 45 different modalities we have here at All Dance International. So without further ado, thank you, Paola, for being here with us. So, bienvenida, Paola.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm so happy to be here. It's a really pleasure. Thank you to All Dance International and Maria Fernanda Castro. She is an inspiration. I think that always we can learn from her. So thank you for being part of this workshop. So begin.
Thank you, same Paola. So we're going to be here sharing today, as I was telling you, about our tap modality. These are instruments that are going to help us in our creative process, because when we speak and we think about creativity, we think about originality, we think about diverse thinking, we think about creative thoughts. But one thing that's very important in all this creative process is the knowledge, the specific elements that we're going to need in order to create a solution to any or problem or ordeal, something that comes up that we have to create something new. But we always have the same basic information, everybody. And the other, let's say, equipment that we have that's very unique is the imagination. That we have to put each one our own imagination, but that's the beauty of it all. Everybody with different imagination and the same information, the same, let's say, the problem, not in the bad way, but let's say in a way that we have to do something to create a new product, in this case, your choreographies. Well, that's going to bring a whole new light and bring so many different creations to the stage. And that is one of the beautiful things that we can appreciate and makes dance and art wonderful. So speaking about tap, we have in All Dance International, our technique is tap, but we have two different modalities inside the tap technique. We have rhythmic tap and tap Broadway. So Paola is going to share with us the basic and the specific criteria that are going to make make special each one of these different techniques. So what are the characteristics that are going to be in rhythm taps? What are the ones that are going to be in tap Broadway? What makes them alike, and what especially brings them apart and makes us identify one from the other? So I'll leave you with Paola. If she has any trouble, maybe some words, well, I'm here to help her. And well, of course, patience, because it's not her native language, but I'm sure she can make you guys understand. And if not, well, I'm here to help. So without further ado, Paola.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, we're going to begin with rhythm tap. It's very important to say that rhythm tap is more focused on the rhythm. So it's very important to use the rhythm in all the choreography and use the changes in time and something like that for the choreography. It's more focused on the time. So in this modality, it's very important to focus on the time in the taps. Very, very important to use that. Of course, is very important to the pace and all the things that we use in the international dance international championship. But here it's very important technique and time in the choreography. So Sandra, you can please change the, thank you. Okay, so the rhythm tap is a dance technique in which the feet move rhythmically while performing musical footwork. So it's very, very important that you know that tap it's music. Also, it's very, very important that you use your taps like this. It's not only shoes, so you have to use the technique for the choreography. You can also use a story, but here it's very, very important that you use the rhythmic tap and the times for this modality. And the other modality is Broadway tap. And here is also known as show tap. So like the name, it's very, very important that you know that here you can dance more. Like you can use a character or a story and you use some elements more the expression, something like this. You can use your body to tell a story. So here also it's very important the technique, but here you can move, you can dance, you can emphasize more in the dance. So it's very, very important that here you use more expression, you use more the space, you use more the elements than are very important in the choreography. It's very important to know that you have to use tap shoes for this modality because it's very important to use the taps for dance. Also, it's the pre-recorded sounds that simulate the tapping and percussion of dancers are not allowed. It's very important that dancers shows all the things that they know, so the pre-recorded sounds are prohibited. Also, the choreography can contain up to 2 acrobatic or gymnastic elements. It's very important to know that all levels of the dancers are different, so you can use some acrobatic movements, but you have know that taps are very difficult to control, so you have to use some acrobatic movements that is according to the level. Also, you have to know that all the choreographies are not an obligation that you use the acrobatic movement. It's only optional.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paola. Paola, this is very important for everybody to know because, of course, tap has a unique technique. They both use tap shoes. They both have a lot of elements in common, but the main characteristic and difference will be what we pretend to show and how we're using the taps and what we are the context we're creating in our performance. And of course, rhythm taps will, as the name says, rhythm, and as Paola shares with us, is very important because there is where tap is an actual instrument. You are a musician with your body. And even though in Broadway tap you are also creating music, well, the main goal is also to complement this with other elements of dance. So here we're going to see the main difference, and now we're going to see the main difference in other elements that we need to know for the competition. So we already know, let's say we want to do rhythm taps, or we're going to do Broadway tap. What are we going to do, and what is our context we're going to show? Now, when we dance, well, where our main element to be able to dance well is the dancers. So we have to decide which or know which level a dancer is in order to create a fair and a very just competitive environment. So for this, a competition to be fair for all dancers, well, all of them should be in equal conditions. So that is why All Dance International has created, in general, all our organic code, but also the levels. The levels of the dancers. We have 4 main and principal levels that will be new all dancers, student level, pre-professional, and professional level. Now, these are the main 4 levels that will determine who my dancer is going to be competing up against. And they should be at the same level as my dancer for this to be an experience that is positive and will influence positively on their development as dancers. Now, how do we know if our dancer would be considered a new all dancer or a student? Because we are not determining this according to how long this dancer has been dancing. We have no way of knowing that in each performance on stage. What we can see is the level, the technical level that dancer is at the time on stage. Now, this could be this first time on stage, it could be the 5th time on stage. That will not affect the level with he or she is going to be actually registered. Now, the new all dancers, what we will be considering new all dancers are these beginner dancers. When I say beginner dancers, it's beginner dancers in dance in general. They're just developing their sense of coordination, their sense of spatial awareness, their sense of rhythm, and of course, in this case, very importantly, their musical audition and the ability to control all these elements that are part of the technique. So these new all dancers, we will see them if they are starting to let's say turn or do difficult elements, they will be doing them in the simplest way. So if a dancer is starting to learn how to turn, well, it will just be simple turns. We won't see here doubles, triples. It will be simple elements that they will have included in their choreography. For example, we won't see very, let's say, high impact jumps or high impact acrobatic elements if you wish to put them, especially because we know the difficulty that it is to do any acrobatic element with tap shoes. So here, it's very important that we keep the elements in the choreography simple in order for the dancer to be able to execute them correctly. And, well, of course, it's a new all dancer. He or she does not have a lot of experience in dance and with their body in general. Now, what age can a new all dancer be? A new all dancer can be 4 years up to 14 years old. these are the ages where we can consider a dancer new all dancer. But it doesn't mean if I have that age, I'm going to be considered especially a new all dancer. I can have 7 years old and be or a new all dancer, or our next level that is dancers, that student dancers. What is a student dancer? We're all students in some point, and still we're students. We're learning constantly from everybody, from every space, and from every opportunity we have. Now, we will consider student dancers. The students have already, let's say, on the next step, they already have certain dominion of that basic concept, those basic elements, the spatial awareness. They have already, let's say, stepped through that and gone to the next level. Now, this next level could be dancers. We have dancers from 6 years old and over. So it doesn't actually matter how old you are. If 6 years or older, you can be considered a student dancer. Now, the student dancers, we don't have a limit in the technical elements you can perform in your choreography. You can be doing double turns, triple turns, some acrobatic elements, some very difficult jumps, very high impact. You can have various rhythm changes or different combinations, complicated, simple, whatever you want, and this can be perfectly executed in student level. Now we have our open or student open level, where this level is created for those performances or choreographies where sometimes we want to combine our new all dancer students and our students in one same choreography or performance. You can do this for many reasons, and that is not an issue. You can do it because you want the new all dancers to have the positive influence of the students. You can do it because they take class together, or just because you want to do a performance with a lot more dancers and you use them all. That is indifferent of what level they are in. Now, if you combine your new all dancers with your students, they should be dancing in student open. But because everybody that's going to be student open is going to be in the same conditions. They're all going to be some new all dancers, some students. And here, the elements in the choreography are according to the level of the students, so that we don't have, let's say, limits, because we know there are some students in the choreography, and well, you can use the elements as you wish. Now, what happens after a student decides he or she wants to go to the next level, right? He or she wants to take dance more seriously, have a stronger commitment, maybe have a way higher technical level or a lot more experience, and we want to take them to the next level and say, we will consider them pre-professional. So how do I know if my dancer, or I in that case, should dance in pre-professional level? Well, pre-professionals will be considered the dancers that have, let's say, some certain characteristics here. They must be from 15 years old and over. If you're under 15 years old, you will be considered student, obviously, and if you're under 14, maybe new all dancer or student. Now, if you're 15 years and older and you maybe give some workshops, do some choreography, if you're a student teacher, if maybe you're a principal dancer in your dance studio, or you're part of a professional dance company, and let's say you can be maybe pre-professional, professional. So how do I know which one? If you're underage and you're a choreographer, you're a teacher, you're a student teacher, you will be considered a pre-professional dancer. If you are a choreographer, a teacher, a workshop, whatever, and you're over 18 years old, you would be considered a professional dancer. Okay, so that's very important to keep in mind. Some people ask, can I dance pre-professionally or professionally if I'm not a teacher? Well, if you wish to, and you're over age, or if you're over 15 and you wish to dance here, you can. What happens? You cannot ever go back down in the same category or modality you danced in. You can only go up. But if you wish to, because you say, I want to compete against a higher level, I have been competing a lot of years, I have the level and I know I can do it, you are open to do it. But if you are a teacher, you must be, or in pre-professional or professional, depending on your age or their age in this case. Now, what happens if you want to do a choreography or in your performance, there are pre-professional and professional dancers dancing together. Well, they can't dance here and they can't dance here, so we have our open pro level. This is where dancers, well, the choreography can have both pre-professional and professional dancers without any problems. So that's why we have this level. Now we have a new level that's very interesting and can allow us to do very diverse elements in our choreography, and we have our open level. This open level is open, all ages, all levels, for open production large groups. Now, this means we can have up to 50 dancers on stage. They can be new-all dancers dancing with pre-professional dancers. There can be student dancers with pre-professionals, new-all dancers with professionals. You can mix them however you like, of course, as long as they're not open student or open pro. Then they should be in their own level. So here you can mix them as you like. These choreographies have a very large diversity of what you can create here, and take advantage of the ages of the different levels and create different various elements in your performances. So these are the main levels we have, how they're divided by depending on which level the dancer is in. And some elements may be according specific to the age, of course, the expectations, everything. So Paola is going to share with us what are the expectations as a judge with each dance level, and obviously according to the tap technique. So what are those things that judges are looking for? What are the things that will be expected from the new-all dancers, from the professional dancers? And what are those elements that you should consider in your performances? So, Paola, what can you tell us about this information?
Thank you, Sandra. Here, for the new-all dancers, we expect only simple sounds. We know that new-all dancers are beginners, so it's very important that the experience is so good for them. So it's simple sounds and simple coordination movements like brush, spank, tap, heel, something like that. Because we know that this is the first experience, and the experience is so hard for beginners. So it's something easy for the dancers. Then for students, the level go up. So it's very, very important that the difficult go up also. So it's very important that the movements are more coordinated. Also, you can use turns or jumps or something like that. You can use also buffaloes, shuffles, pull-ups, more movements that are difficult. In pre-professional and professional level, you can do all things. You can use more the space, you can use more time changes, you can use also wings, some steps or some movements that are hard. So you can use also your hands or something like that that sometimes is hard for the beginners. So here you can use all things that you want for enrich your choreography.
Thank you very much, Paola. My microphone didn't want to begin. No, very, very good. These are very important elements to keep in mind, and to always be careful with them. To choose which level a dancer should be performing in, to make it a very positive competitive environment for all dancers, and for them to be very in equal conditions, for it to be a fair qualification. Now, we already know what level they should be in, what different modalities. Now let's see how they will be scored and how they will be, let's see, evaluated by the judges. For this process, we have 3 different judges. Our maximum score possible in All Dance International is 100 points. 70 of these points can be given or awarded by the medality judge. The judge additionally will also be giving a feedback to each performance. So the dancers have elements that they know they can work on. So next time they can do even better. And this will help in their creative and artistic process. Now, the other judge we have is complimentary judge. This judge can give the additional 30 points to achieve the 100 points. Well, of course, I'm talking about the maximum possible. And as everybody knows, we have specific criterias, and the judges, as well as all our dancers, have in the organic code rules that they have to follow, specific criterias that they are going to be looking for in order for it to be equal for all of the dancers and for it to be very impartial. Now, our third judge is our deductions judge. This judge is going to be looking and seeing that all the competitors have everything in order, that they're competing in the correct level, that all the rules are going to be applied equally for all dancers, and some other elements that are going to be specific for each modality. We're going to see that in a little moment. What are those criteria that each judge is going to be looking for? Now, all the judges, when they are giving a score for each one of these criteria, are based on, let's say, an average score that we have in each one of the criteria. You're going to see in a bit that not all criteria have the same maximum score possible. So according to each one of these scores, we're going to have an average score that's going to be, let's say, what is expected of the dancers in order to fulfill each one of these criteria. We can always go above average. We can always go exceed those expectations. But sometimes there's some elements that we still have to work on and may be a little below average on those specific criteria. So this is also going to help us see where are the elements that we have to still work on. What are the elements that we don't have to work on them, but we have already, let's say, gone over the expectations, or in what elements we can still keep on going higher. Now that's going to be a good element to complete it, and let's say additional from the feedback is going to help improve all of this process. Now let's see what are the specific criteria that the judges are going to be looking for. Now let's start with the modality judge. Remember, he or she can give a maximum of 70 points. Now at the right side of each one of the criteria, you'll see the maximum score this judge can give for this criteria in specific. Now, the first criteria will be correct modality. This means that the choreography that is on stage corresponds with the modality that he registered and is aligned with the characteristics of these modalities. So here we're talking about tap. So all of these elements that Paola shared with us earlier should be present in my choreography when I decide which one of the different styles of tap I am performing. We also have technical level. The technical level is as it names, the technique that the dancer has in his performance. Of course, regarding age, it will vary, and regarding the level, but the technical level that is expected from that level of dancer. We also have execution. When we talk about execution, we're talking about the synchronization in case of duets, trios, or groups. And skill, applying to everybody, and when there's soloists, skill will take the place of the whole execution score. Now, when we're talking about synchronization, we're talking about, it's very self-explanatory, but we can be synchronized in sync, or we can be, let's say, on different times, but in different counts, especially when we're playing with rhythm. We can do cannons, we can do asynchronic elements. We can play with the rhythm in different ways, but it should be clear what is our synchronization, how is it intended to be. Now the skill is how we use our technical level, how we use all our elements, our synchronization, and how am I executing these elements? Are they clear? Can I understand them? Are they correctly executed? So that's what we're going to talk about when we talk about skill. In difficulty, we are considering two different criteria: extraordinary movements and elements of risk. Now, when we hear the word elements of, especially the word risk, everybody, well, including myself, when we hear that at the beginning, we assume immediately risky elements like acrobatics, like standing on your head, like maybe doing, I don't know, a triple turn in the air and landing, I don't know, on your big toe. I'm obviously exaggerating, but these elements are not the only ones that are going to be considered risky, especially in each technique and modality of dance. Now, what are those risky elements? What are those extraordinary movements that we can achieve in a choreography? Well, that will depend on the specific modality we are dancing. It could be different speeds, it could be control, it could be balance, it could be, I don't know, difficult turns, difficult jumps. It could be a lot of elements depending on each one of the modalities we are going to be dancing. So Paola is going to provide some more light and maybe give some other details that can contribute and maybe widen the view of these criterias in TAP, or that she can share with us that maybe can help you out.
Okay, so it's very, very important in the technique that the sounds are clear. So from the beginners to the advanced, it's very, very important that you use good your technique. So in simple movements like brush or spank, the sounds have to be sharp. So it's very, very important that you can use your technique so good for correct modality and also your technical level. So in execution, it's very, very important that you use your technique for develop your choreography. So you use really the tap technique. So you use this for coordination or something like that. Remember that the level of the dancer is very important, because if you give some exercise that are very difficult to your dancer, it's very difficult to the dancer that show her technical level. So you have to be accord to the level for the dancer can be good with the choreography and in the stage. Also, in the elements of risk, it's very important to know that coordination and good sounds are also here. It's not only acrobatic movements or big jumps. It's tap. It's very difficult. So coordination, turns, combinations are also extraordinary movements. So here it's important to know that these also are risk in this modality.
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, it's very important to keep all those details in mind because, of course, it's dance isn't easy, but when we have to combine dance with also being a musical instrument, well, it makes it a lot harder. Now, the other, let's say, criteria that the modality judge is going to be looking for are: one, musicality. This will be in two different criteria. One, musical interpretation or beat. That will be, well, of course, very important here in tap because it's how the dancer uses the music, or in this case, also can create the music uh, for the stage and for it to be clear. The music here is the, let's see, if it's the ideal music for this modality. In tap, we don't have a limitation on what kind of music should or should not be used for tap. It is very a broad range of elections we have. So here we're going to speak more about the let's say the quality of the music, and especially when we have to edit the music, how is that edition done? And that will affect also this score. Now, choreography. In choreography, we have two different criteria. One will be the costume, and the other the complexity. Now, with costume, it should be a costume that is comfortable for the dancer, that is according to the age and going to reflect the context and all the elements that are going to be present in the performance. In tap, we don't have a special, let's say, aesthetics that has to be accompanied like other techniques like ballet, that there's a certain aesthetic that has to be present or that should be present. But tap has a broad and a lot of liberty in this aspect. In complexity, we are talking about, remember we talked about the difficult elements. Now here, when we talk about complexity, we're talking about the complexity of the choreography as a whole, of the composition of the choreography. If it's a group, the different formations, the use of the space, the changes in the speed, all the elements that can make a choreography more complex or simple. Obviously, according to the level and the age of the dancers, it will be expected to be a little more or less complex. And creativity. Here, well, it's a very important criteria because we're talking about the creative process that also brings us here today. Now, creativity is going to be in two different criteria. One, creativity, and the other, entertainment. So creativity is going to be expected, of course. We all have the same basics. We have the same elements we should oblige, but how we use them, how we use the different technical level of our dancers, how we use our music, how we use all those elements to compose and to do our own and unique performance that will help also change and give different dynamics to be able to be entertaining. So this entertainment will be, let's say, part in part. Part the choreography will have a role because if it's a dynamic choreography, if it has a lot of changes, if it can generate surprise, if it can generate energy, well, it will help one element to be entertaining. The other element of entertainment will come from the entertainer, from the dancer. So if he or she enjoys what they are doing, it is more likely that the public, the audience, and of course the judges will enjoy and be more entertained. And of course, well, the connection that he or she can achieve with this audience, how he can transmit these emotions, the context, and all the elements that, let's say, the choreographer intended to portray in this performance. So these elements will complete those 70 points. Remember, at the right side, we have what is the highest score that can be achieved in this specific criteria. So here, these are the elements that are going to complement those first criteria we saw. And here, Paola, if you can maybe add, complement something that can help them here, especially that we're talking about the music. That's a very important part in tap, and I know the importance it has in all the scores and what we're visualizing.
Yes, it's very important to use your shoes like an instrument. So the musical interpretation here is very, very, very important. So you can use your taps like a character also. So use it and take care the beat. It's very, very important here. It doesn't matter the level, but you always go with music. Remember the pre-recorded sounds, it's prohibited. So the idea, it's the taps uh, are the instruments too. So use so good the music for the interpretation. Also use the expression for show the public all things that you are feeling. So when you connect with your public or the judges, it's the entertainment. It's so good. So it's very important to know that the expression it's always there in the choreographies because the technique it's very important, but the expression also.
Of course, very important to keep in mind, and thank you very much, Paola. Now, we went over the criteria that the modality judge will be looking for and be, of course, scoring. Now, let's see the next judge. Oh, sorry, before we move to the next judge, oh my God, I almost slipped my mind. Very important. Since we were talking about creativity, and this is a very important element, well, we also have to take care of being very respectful of all this creative process that has been created before us by our peers, by some references that we have that have helped grow the tap industry. Now, when we use these artists and these choreographers as a reference, as an inspiration, that is one thing. Now, when we go and copy that work, then we are going to be in a fault of maybe going overboard from the intellectual property those creations have. So here, it's ideal, and what we want is to obviously be creative, do our own work. If we're going to be inspired is one thing, but another thing is to do plagiarism. So here, use the elements that inspired you, but create your own piece with that inspiration, or create it from scratch however you want. In Tap Broadway, well, we have some Broadway pieces that include tap that are, let's say, a big inspiration and help us in our performances and our creative process. Now, also keep that in mind. We can take some elements of those, let's say, repertoires without copying exactly, because remember, they have copyrights and they have all the rights to those choreographies. So we can use them as inspiration, but not copy the whole choreography, in order to not be, let's say, incurring in this fault and maybe having a deduction for this criteria. And this is going to be in charge of the modality judge. Now we can move on to our next judge, that is the complementary judge. And the complementary judge is going to be looking for other different criteria that will complement all this process in the choreography. Now, let's start with these. The stage use. Now, when we dance, well, we are going to use, obviously, a stage, and the idea is to use the space. Not necessarily talking about filling the space, because if we have a choreography that has 40 dancers, 35, 45, well, the space is going to seem full. But the idea is how we use it, how we move through the space, if we actually take advantage of the space we have, of course, according to the category, the modality, but how we use the space is going to be determined here. The formations. There are a lot of various formations that we can achieve in a group, in a duet, obviously not in a solo. In a solo, the space will be what is considered here, but the formations, the idea is to use different formations. This will help give a different dynamic to the choreography and to the performance. So the formations will be obviously an important thing to keep in mind when you create your choreographies. The levels. When we're talking about levels, well, we're talking about the high, medium, and low levels that we use in dance. Well, obviously, depending on the modality, some modalities use a lot of floor work, some don't use floor work, and this, of course, will be taken in account by the complementary judge. The transitions is very important, the transitions, because it is how we move through the space to get from point A to point B and do our different formations, and how we go from one level to the other in the use of levels. So how we do these transitions, if we walk, if we run, if we, let's say, fall to the floor without technique, well, those elements will influence in this specific criteria of transitions. Now, let's move to image. In the image, we're speaking about different elements that will altogether be part of the image. One, creativity. Now, when I am seen on stage, we have the whole attire, the dress, the costume, all the shoes, how we look, and how this what we're using in the image, it is creative, of course, according to what it is you want to portray on your performance, in your performance, sorry. So if it is, if it's coherent with the story, with the elements in your performance, well, that will be part of the creativity. Of course, making it unique and making it special. Accessories. Here, when we use accessories, if needed or if intended, well, that will be considered the correct use of accessories. Now, when we're dancing on stage, well, of course, because of the pandemic and a lot of health issues, we, in some countries, it is obliged to use a face mask. When we use a face mask to dance, well, it will be considered an accessory and should have a coherence and be part of the costume as well. Now, makeup. Our makeup, well, of course, we are on stage, we're in a competitive environment, we have lights, we have the audience that is not up close. So the makeup should be artistic makeup, especially created for one, the character you're trying to portray, also to, let's say, exaggerate or emphasize the specific expressions or maybe the factions of each face, so those expressions can be more clearly seen and enjoyed. This goes for male dancers and female dancers alike. Of course, if you have a character, it's going to be a different type of makeup, but makeup can also help us give a different context. If our character is old, if he's or she is young, what type of elements are there? The colors can also affect in this makeup. And in visual aesthetics is how we put this all together, how they grind together and create that visual aesthetics. Now, the visual aesthetics will have a big influence in helping that context that we are creating for our performance. I strongly recommend you study some elements of a color theory that will help us in completing all our work in the visual aesthetics area, because it's not that we can or cannot use certain colors. We can use as many colors as we want, how we want, but it is very useful if the colors we use help emphasize the character we want in our performance. If it's happy, if it's sad, if it's in a warm place, if it's in a cold place, all the accessories, all the costume, the makeup, and the colors will help create this ambience we want or we should maybe need in our performance. So those are elements that if we use, if we put to our advantage, it could help us a lot in being able to communicate, well, obviously in a better way with the audience. Now here, some elements may be more important than others, especially in tap. So let's have our expert Paola share some of her vision and knowledge here in these criteria.
Okay. Here in the transitions, I think that's very important because the transitions show us the professionalism, because they show us how you are on the stage as you go from one place to another. So it's very, very important to know how I'm transition to one movement to other. Also, when you use accessories, it's very, very important to secure them well, because it's very important that the dancers are secure with all the things that they are using. So it's very, very important to secure the accessories in the choreography.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is very important because when we use accessories, if well, the dancer isn't used to them and doesn't feel comfortable, well, instead of being a positive element, it can be a negative element. So yes, it's very important, all these details. Thank you very much, Paola. Paola, sorry, in English. The difference is more subtle. Okay, so let's go in the other elements in complementary that will have an impact in the choreography. Now, in complementary, we're also going to be looking for the performance projection, how the dancer projects on stage and how this projection can help the performance. And in this specific case, we have 4 different criteria that will be affecting this overall score. Now, the gestuality, how we use our body to tell the story, to express the emotions. This goes in the eyes, in the body language, in, of course, facial expressions when we don't have a mask. If we do have a mask, well, we'll depend a lot more on our body language and our eyes expression, but every dancer will be in equal conditions because we all have to oblige the same rules. Also, the authenticity of the character. what it is we're trying to say, what our character is, if it's rhythm tap, if it's a Broadway tap, if it's one character, the other, the everything we're trying to say is it clear? Is it being interpreted? Can we understand it? The force of movement. Here, of course, when we hear force, we think about strength. But here, we're talking about clarity of movement. If the movement should be sharp, if it should be soft, if it should be fluid, if it should be, let's say, very forceful. What is the movement like? And this will also help emphasize the authenticity of the character, and this will also tell some part of the story. So it should be a clear and clean movement so we understand where it begins, where it ends, and that will help all of the elements in general of the performance, and of course also the technique. The interpretation, here is when we put them all together. When they work in harmony, we'll have, well, an interpretation, how that body language is going to connect and obviously tell a story or tell or take us to some place, to an emotion. And that interpretation will, of course, is how the dancer can connect with the audience and with the judges. So that is going to be an important element as well. This goes with from when we get on stage, how is our posture, how we look, how every element here. Now, the other criteria here is public response. Now, the judges have given all the scores, have been, let's say, responsible of all the elements in this scoring process. Now, here is when we bring, let's say, a special guest to our judging panel. And these special guests are all of you, all of the parents, all of the other students, brothers, sisters, family, friends, let's say our fans, everybody can help and can support the dancers. So here is how we can support the dancers and how the public responds to that performance. We can support, of course, our family, our friends, but we can also support our fellow dancers on stage. That is one of the beautiful things of the competitive and positive competitive environment, where we support other dancers, where sometimes we can find dancers we look up to and are an inspiration for us as well. So this is the way we can contribute and support the dancers. The public response is very important because that is what feeds the energy of the dancers. The dancers share that energy with us, share all their emotions, and share, let's say, a piece of themselves when they dance, but also the response of the public and that warmth in when they receive that is an element that goes both ways. So it's very beautiful. Now, you probably are asking, how can I support the dancers? How is this? Now, when we are on social media, through social media, through likes, through comments, the same when we're through Zoom, the comments, being there connected is going to, well, of course, improve the energy with the dancer is dancing when he knows they are watching and somebody that it cares is at the other side of the camera. And when we are on stage, well, of course, the audience, the applauses, feeling that the loved ones are there with them is also going to affect their energy and will be taken in, let's say, in regard for this criteria. So here is the way that everybody can help and say, be a special guest in our judging panel. So Paola, what other elements can you maybe add or complement this information to help them have a wider view and a broader understanding?
Okay, here it's very important to think also in hands. In force of movement, we are always thinking in tap in feet, but here it's very, very important that you doesn't forgive your hands. So it's important to keep in mind that the arms are also protagonists. So they must also have a force even when they are not being used. So you you always have your hands, so use it all the time. And also it's very, very important that you connect with your audience. So show us that you love what you do and why are you in the stage. It's very, very important to connect not only with the judges, also with the audience and with your family and all the people that are in the audience.
Thank you very much. Yes, very important as well. Now, all of these elements that we have shared with you are what will give you the maximum, of course, or the scores you can achieve. Now, we have our third judge. The third judge is our deductions judge. Our deductions judge is there to verify that the rules are applied the same and by everybody, or is also there in order to maintain, the redundant order and avoid chaos and make the competition fair and as, let's say, impartial as possible. These deductions are designed specially for this. And as you can see when we start sharing them, most of the deductions are about the general regulations and organic code and can be foreseen. They can be prevented. And the idea that you're here watching, here live, or through YouTube after, remember all our workshops are on YouTube and our official YouTube channel, All Dance International Official. Well, you can see that all of these criteria can be avoided. If you're hearing and seeing them, well, then you're going to know them and it's going to be easily avoided. Now, let's go one by one and see how we can avoid them and see what effect they can have. Now, the first one is wrong modality. So this one is if I'm dancing in the correct modality where I registered. So let's say if I registered in Broadway tap, is my choreography have all the characteristics that should be in Broadway tap? Remember, Paola from the start told us what are the characteristics of each one of the different styles and modalities of tap. So if it applies correctly, well, it won't have any wrong modality. When we have a wrong modality, it's because effectively it should be in another modality that we have in All Dance International, one of our 45 different modalities. So it's important to know what my options are to dance and is my performance in the correct modality. We also have wrong division. The division is the age range of my performance in the competition. So depending on the age of the dancers, there is one or other division, the same. This we went over in detail in our first workshop that we had about the overall rules. We didn't go over today about division, but we do have divisions for every age. If you're a soloist, if you're groups and have different ages, we also have a division and where you can dance with the same age range in your competitors. Now, wrong level. We talked about the levels where we should dance depending on our technique and our technical level in the performance. So just respect that, because one of the elements that's very important in obliging and having all these elements is that when we win something in life, when we win a prize, when we win any achievement that we have, if it's not done in an honest way, it loses complete value. So here, the professional ethics and, well, of course, honesty is going to be, the actual motor and going to be one of the elements that makes it worthwhile. So the level, we choose the correct level for the dancer, not to get an easy achievement, but to get a fair achievement. Also, late arrival on stage. When we register, when register closes, we're going to have sent a preliminary program. In this program, we're going to see what approximate time we are intended to dance and what date. Now, this time, as I say, it's approximate because sometimes the event can go a lot faster, sometimes it can be a little late. But when we are, let's say, assigned that approximate time, we are also invited to be there 2 hours early. So we should be there with 2 hours. So nothing comes up unexpectedly. If the program is going ahead of schedule, then we know where we are. We know it's ahead of schedule. We have time to put our makeup on. We have time to get dressed. We have time to warm up our body. That's very important. And any, let's say, last minute details can be arranged in time. So we have that 2 hours, let's say, gap, so we can be prepared for everything. If the dancer is not ready to go on stage, if he is not backstage and is not there yet, or is late for his performance on stage, well, it will be considered a late arrival to stage. Now, next, false routine start. Sorry. When we talk about false routine start, the choreography will consider that it's started when the dancer moves. Okay, so let's say the dancers on stage, the music is played and the dancer starts to move, or if he starts a cappella, whatever. Now, if the dancer moves with the music, we will consider that he already or she already started. If by any reason they have to start again because maybe that wasn't the correct music, or I don't know, they didn't hear something, well, this will be considered a false routine start. So let's train the dancers to be prepared. If they're on stage, they're ready, and that's not their music, or have any problem with the music, don't move. Don't start dancing, because then it will be considered a false routine start. Unless they start and continue. Well, that's part of what sometimes we have to endure as a dancer and an artist. But it's very important to keep that in mind. Forbidden elements. Now, forbidden elements will be considered elements that can endanger the stage, the dancer, or the other dancers. Like what? Like fire, like water, any liquid, any oily substance, powders also could be considered, let's say any paint, any elements that can endanger, or maybe, I don't know, feathers that fall off the dress and make it slippery, especially regarding we have tap shoes, that is already slippery enough. Now, so this, we should be respectful for what elements we include in our composition and our choreography, so it can be well, obviously safe for this dancer and for other dancers on stage. Excessive use of acrobatic or gymnastic elements. Now, remember that Paola told us that in tap, we can use a maximum of 2 acrobatic elements. If we choose to put acrobatic elements, if you don't want to, that will not have any negative impact on your performance whatsoever. But if you do, not more than 2 acrobatic elements, because for each acrobatic element you put additional, will have 1 point deduction. Now, moving on. Makeup, body paint, inappropriate, obscene, or offensive clothing. Now, of course, the makeup should be appropriate for the dance, the same as the costume. And what can be considered, let's say, inappropriate? Well, inappropriate is a costume that should not be used in tap in the performance. Let's say if you don't have tap shoes, well, of course, it's inappropriate shoes for tap. If it's obscene or offensive because it's making fun of somebody, or if it's not age appropriate. And body paint, for example, is one of the elements that is not appropriate for all dance stage, because one, body painting is normally an oil-based paint. That one, if we have contact with the stage, with the floor, it can make the stage dirty for the next dancers, or make it slippery. Another element, let's say, present normally in body paint, it is done with no clothes or very little clothes. And it's a beautiful artistic expression, of course it is, but it's not appropriate for the all dance stage. In all dance, we strive for our audience to be, of course, comfortable, and it's a family audience. It's familiar audience where we have children, we have adults, we have all ages, and also multicultural. We have people from all over the world sharing these performances and the stage. So the cultural differences we have on some views of some elements should not be an element, an issue that can affect the enjoyment of the performance. So this is to take into account as well. The other element are poorly executed elements. Now, the poorly executed elements would be the technical elements in our performance that we execute, and how are they executed in general. So if our knees are straight, and are they clearly straight? If they should be bent, is it clear that they are bent? How are our feet? Do they have a position, or are they just abandoned through life and should have a position? If we're turning, are we using the spot correctly? All the elements about the technique. If we, let's say, take an element from another technique and borrow it for our performance, well, it should be executed and respecting the technique where we borrowed it from, okay? So if it's an acrobatic element, it should be executed in the correct manner that it should, well, it's intended to by its original technique. Another element, tripping or falling. When we're talking about tripping, it's all the instabilities, is sometimes it's the, let's say we have a stumble that we almost didn't accomplish the step, but we could save it on time. Well, that will be tripping or stability, a stumble, 0.5 in deduction. Or if we fall, we couldn't save the exercise, the element, the term, whatever, and we fall, well, it will be considered 1 point deduction. The next one will be throwing elements to the public. Whatever elements we have on stage and maybe we take off and wish to, I don't know, generate an impact by throwing them, you can throw them on stage, you can throw them backstage, you can throw them to the sides, but not in front of the stage or to the public. So that is also going to be an account here. Next criteria will be throwing item, inappropriate language or music. So here, the same. The idea is that we are respectful to every culture, to every gender, to every religion, to every belief, to every sexual orientation, and that should be also reflected in all of the elements in our performance, just like music is also. So we shouldn't have any curse words in our performance or any offensive vocabulary or sexual content in the lyrics that we are using in our performance. Also, inappropriate movement. Inappropriate movements will be those movements that are explicit sexually and have a sexual content. One thing is sensual and another thing is sexual. So here we are looking for those elements that are appropriate for a family audience as well, and not sexualized movements on stage. So those are the first elements and first criteria that we will be taking into account in the deductions. I don't know if some elements I may have said maybe briefly for tap, if Paola considers. What other elements, or how can you maybe have elements that can give them tips or help them out in these criteria of deduction?
Yes, I think that it's very important that we know that we are training human beings before dancers. So it's very important to know that the discipline, the punctuality, and that things are very, very important in the formation of the dancers, and also the respect for difference. So here, with all of these deductions, are not difficult. So it's only know it, and also know that it's some things that we have to do as a dancers, as a teachers, as a directors.
Thank you very much. Yes, a very important topic and a very important thing, because we're working with dancers and we're working with, of course, human beings. Now, other criteria in deduction that we have to keep in mind. Well, let's start. Accidents or fallings or falls of clothing, accessories, or so forth. Here, if we're going to use accessories, if we're going to use props, well, rehearse with them. If they're supposed to be on the wardrobe, well, sew them very well. If they're a headpiece, bobby pins, put them on, I don't know, glue, but it should not fall off. The same if we have a prop, rehearse with it so it doesn't fall, and we don't have any deductions for this matter. Also, damaged clothing or untidy clothing as well. So the costume should be, well, of course, very well presented. It should be clear what elements are a part of the costume. Rehearse with the costume so it is comfortable. if our undergarment, our underwear is visible, if our hair is neatly done. It doesn't matter what hair do you choose, but it should be, well, of course, neatly placed, and all the elements regarding your attire. Choreography inappropriate to division. This means keep your choreography age appropriate. That's it. Altisonance at the start or middle or end of the routine. Here, what we're talking and what we refer as altisonance are elements like cheers or create arousal in the public by arousing the public with verbal expressions. The idea is to arouse the public and to create that energy through dance and through my performance, not through verbal expressions. And also in the music or by the dancers, we should not see present in the performance any type of, let's say, advertisement or pronunciation of the name of the crew, the name of the group, the name of the dance studio, the name of the school. So these are elements that should not be in the choreography. Another one, left elements on stage. All the elements we bring on stage should leave stage with us. Maybe being parts of the costume, props, or any element that we have maybe placed on stage or fallen on stage. So that is an important thing. We should leave the stage as we found it, and as the next dancer should obviously have the conditions to dance safely in. Next one, use of scenery. What will be considered scenery? And well, obviously, the use of scenery will be considered a deduction. Now, if we bring on stage any element that is just there for the intention of decorating, of generating an environment, let's say, just being there to maybe look pretty or generate the sense of where we are, well, this will be considered scenery. Now, if we bring something on stage, can be decorative or not, but we use it in our performance, it's part of the choreography, that will not be considered a scenery. It's a prop. This prop can be a chair, it can be a table, but it should be part of the choreography, at least in 30% of the choreography. And another detail is that it should be brought on stage and off stage by the dancer or dancers that are going to be using it on stage. So keep those elements in mind. Also, fans, public, obstructing the judgment. Now, here, our audience, public, fans, everybody that is watching, well, the idea is the support of these, obviously, audience, but in a respectful manner. Now, how can we be respectful and also be cheery? Well, at the beginning and the end of the performance choreography, you can scream, you can be as loud as possible, okay? But in the middle or during the performance, we have to be very respectful on how we support the dancers. Applauses are okay. Now, what is the important element here? We have to be able to judge the choreography, but also the dancer has to be able to concentrate and to listen to the music in order to use the music. So we have to listen to what they are doing on stage, but also the music they're using. And this will obviously sometimes the audience, when they're not respectful, interfere with the ability of the judges to hear and let's say evaluate the performance. Also, getting off, jumping off, or dropping off stage. Now, when we get on and off stage, it should be only and exclusively done through the, let's say, areas that are indicated to do so. So no jumping off stage, set front, back, to the sides, only on and off through the correct areas that are designed in that specific stage. Routine time. Routine time or choreographic time is we have, according to the subdivision, that will mean according to how many dancers are on stage, a time limit that can be used in each performance. Now, for example, we have a performance of a soloist, duo, or trio where the maximum time limit is 2 minutes. The choreography can last 1.5, 150, but maximum can do, let's say, last 2 minutes. Now, when we go over the 2 minutes, what can happen? For every 5 seconds we go over, we have 3 points deduction. Now, this is something we can avoid. And 3 points is not small, because when we're in competition and a competitive environment, any little difference, even a decimal, can have an effect on being first place or third place, or even being on the top three. So here it's something we can avoid easily. Just take this into account, how long your choreography lasts and how much it should. If the choreography lasts, say, 2:03, okay, it's not 5 seconds yet, no deduction. But if it's 2:05, 2:06, we already have 3 points deduction. Now, some people do the, let's say, edit the music so it lasts 2:04. I'm not saying you can't. I just recommend that you shouldn't, because the choreographic time is taken from the first sound or movement of the dancer, and is determined to end in the same way, the last sound or movement. So if our song lasts 2:04, but the dancer maybe took 1 second to get to his pose or her pose, or moved, and well, it's easily passed to 2:05. So I just recommend don't go so close to that borderline, so you don't have any possibilities in having this deduction without needing it. Okay, so that would be routine time. The other criteria would be intellectual property. We already went through that. It's a responsibility of the modality judge, but here what's going to be reflected on the deduction sheet. Regulation infringement. Here, all our organic code and every one of our rules is intended to make a safe environment and a positive competitive environment for everybody. And any infringement of any rules that can endanger any other dancer, that can make this not safe space or go against the regulations, can have a deduction for this. And last but not least, increase in unreported dancers. So when we do our registration, we send our registration with the dancers that are going to dance each choreography. Now, if we report that 6 dancers will be on stage, well, 6 dancers are expected to be on stage. Now, if 7 dancers are on stage, 5 points for each dancer is going to be deducted. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Now, when we are sent the sheet, remember I told you that the program is going to be sent to you. We'll check that on each performance, all the information is correct, from the names of the dancers, the amount of dancers on stage, the time, everything that you find is correct. And well, of course, if it is not, well, send an email, send a message, preferably in writing, to the organization so this can be adjusted. Of course, if you have a new dancer that's going to be performing, well, do the, let's say, the amendment and do this change inside the stipulated times to do so. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. What happens if less dancers are performing? Well, if it's 6 dancers that were meant to perform, for some reason, 1 dancer could not go on stage and only 5 dancers are on stage, this will not have a negative effect on your score. Now, what happens if, let's say, there were supposed to be 5 dancers on stage, it was a small group, but instead of 5, only 3 dancers danced on stage? This will mean that instead of being a small group, it's a trio and should be competing against trios. So here we have a change in subdivision that you should have reported on time to do the correct adjustments, okay? So that's an important element also to keep on mind, especially for the justice of your dancers and of everybody else's dancers in the competition. So these are the criteria that we should keep in mind for modality, for complementary, and of course to avoid deductions. As you can see, I think more than 90%, I dare to say 95% of the criteria of deductions, can be avoided. If you're here, if you're with us, well, then you already have the knowledge. That's the main information to avoid these and of course not have any deductions or as minimum as possible. Most deductions are committed or done by people who don't read, who are not aware of the rules, and it is important thing to be aware of them. So in this case, I think I can say safely that most of the deductions you will not have any issue with them and will not obviously have them. So, well, thank you actually for caring, for being here, and for being responsible choreographers, dancers, directors, or parents, whoever you are watching. I don't know if here Paola has something she would like to add, compliment to the information. Sorry.
Only said that many of the deductions are for taking care of the dancers and also for maintaining the family atmosphere of All Dance International. We know that sometimes the little dancers have the big ones as an example. So it's very, very important to that we must take care of that inspiration that we generate in the little ones. So it's very, very important that the family environment are always in the stage and in the public in All Dance International.
Yes, that's very true, and thank you for that. Another thing, and when I say, for example, Paola says that for the family, but this will also have, let's say, an effect also depending on the culture we grew up in. Every culture has, let's say, different elements that are proper to us or that common to us. Better word actually choice. Now, some things are normalized in our culture that maybe are not normalized in others, and we want to be a multicultural. Every family of any culture can feel comfortable. A very simple example of this is if we are part of, let's say, an indigenous tribe. Well, in a lot of indigenous tribe, it is very, let's say, normal, and it's part of their day to day to not use, in the females, use any bras, use any top garments that covers the upper part of the body. But in our culture, it is not well seen for a female to go out without a t-shirt, without a bra, without something covering them. That does not mean that the body is something we should be ashamed of, but in our culture, it is not well seen and not accepted. So we have to be aware that we should be respectful to all the cultures, uh, same on stage, so it can be felt comfortable by every dancer, no matter their culture, no matter their beliefs. So that is the reason why this is also important. Now, those are the criterias, those are the elements that are part of the scoring process for our performances, and especially for our tap performances. Now, I want to thank you all for being here, for sharing the space with us. Also, a very special thank you to Paola for sharing all this knowledge with always the responsibility, care, and of course, love that is part of the passion that we have for dance. So thank you very much for being here, for sharing all of this, and for always being, well, part of our industry and part of the All Dance organization.
Thanks everything. It's a pleasure to be here. Congratulations for love, dance, and all this process of formation of dancers. Thank you to All Dance International and Maria Fernanda Castro. It's a really pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Same, All Dance International. Thank you very much, Maria Fernanda. We are with our creatives workshop until April 25th. So I hope you stay tuned. If you missed our live transmission, well, you can see us on YouTube, our official All Dance International official channel. And always remember, subscribe and like. Remember, we are in Panama time, these schedules. So you can see the according time to your time schedule in your country, but it will be a great pleasure to keep on sharing all this information with all of you. And thank you very much for everything. Hope to see you very soon, someplace around the world or here in our creative workshops. Have a very great day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Bye bye. See you soon.
Didn't break me, didn't stop me. It didn't kill me, didn't drop me. Yeah, I can still feel my heartbeat. Like it didn't faze me, didn't move me. It couldn't hold me, couldn't crush me. Yeah, I can still